Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
And we've got a very, very important special guest today, none other than Joe Goodberry. In my mind, for my money, as good a football analyst as there is. He can break it down. I mean, he does an unbelievable job breaking down the tape, player analysis. It's incredible. And also a huge Bengals fan. And Joe, you're going to be part of our First Star Media Group, which is going to be the new home for everything Bengals, man. Bengals content extraordinaire. And I know you're a Bengals fan as well. First of all, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you.
Secondly, why the Bengals? How'd you become such a Bengals fan, Joe?
Yeah, because I am in Western New York.
Yeah.
I don't really have a good reason or good story. I used to watch a lot of NFL films when I was really young. And you remember the week before the Super Bowl, they would play all the old Super Bowls again. So I don't remember the 89 Joe Robbie Stadium Bengals coming out of the tunnel, but that is my first memory of football. And I was probably at 5, 6, 7 watching NFL films. So it probably wasn't live at the time when it happened because I was born in 87. So I wasn't 2 years old remembering this. No way. But I do remember that as my first football thought and thinking, man, those helmets are beautiful. And I stuck with it. Like, there's a lot of hard times here trying to get some Bengals coverage and footage and games. But, by the time I was a teenager, the early 2000s, Marvin Lewis era, they were very popular and they were on all the time. And Sunday Ticket was available. And it really wasn't an issue to be 7.5 hours away.
It's funny. Remember when we got the striped helmets, Paul Brown, I asked him, I said, why this dramatic change? I mean, it went from a very, very mundane Bengals letter logo, box lettering on an orange helmet to this tiger stripes, and he said, for the very reason you're describing, we wanted something that would pop, and people take notice of the Cincinnati Bengals. The very first year we wore those striped helmets was 1981. We went to the Super Bowl. So I guess Paul Brown, that guy, as everybody knows, he was something special. There's no question about it. But those helmets were huge.
That's how you knew the 2021 team was going back to the Super Bowl after they changed their uniforms as well. It's just you should probably do that every so often and regain some spark.
No question. So the First Star Media Group has its own YouTube channel. And on that YouTube channel is going to be Bengals on the Brain, which is the brain of Joe Goodberry. Tell us what Bengals on the Brain, what does it encompass? What does it involve?
Well, pretty much everything. I've been covering or analyzing and cutting up clips, film, going over anything that pops in your brain in terms of the Bengals for over 14 years now.
Wow.
And the YouTube show's only been for the last year, and then First Star recruited me. Everything they do is big and extra, and they knew they could take it to level 100. So I knew right away that they'd be a great fit to join them and get on this team. So what you can expect is film analysis and breakdowns. It'll be mostly player evaluation, some X's and O's. We'll take maybe a data point or some new analytics that maybe we don't fully understand. We'll dive in and see what it looks like and match the tape up to it and say, okay, what does this look like? They're saying that the Bengals run too often on second and long. So let's go look at the tape and the scenarios and actually see, is it warranted or how is it affecting their third downs? We'll look at salary cap. We'll look at the draft when it comes around. Everything and anything that's Bengals that you could possibly be interested in, even things you don't know you're interested in yet, we'll cover it.
Man, how many hours do you put in on a daily basis, working like you do here?
Well, like I said, it's Bengals on the Brain for a reason. It's because the brain never shuts off. There's always a point. There's always a section of the brain that's thinking of something, whether it's writing an article while I'm doing other work, while I'm watching the kids play softball or doing whatever they're doing. There's always content churning here. And I'll listen to other teams. I'll watch other teams. And because a lot of times I'll take what they're doing and say, how does that apply to the Bengals? Are they doing this? Are they blitzing this much? Are they dropping into cover 2 this much? Are they allocating resources to the tight end position as much as this team? And I'll try and see how I can fit it into the Bengals sphere or bubble. And it's pretty successful to do that and try and look at things from outside the box.
So you're an equal opportunity guy in terms of proving a theory and disproving. I mean, you basically take your tape, break it down, and it's like, here's the real deal. I mean, here's what I saw on this tape. Here's the breakdown. Here's what we're talking about, folks.
Yeah, I can't say it's probably 50-50 at times where I think I'm going into a game or watching the film. I'll say, you know what, I really want to look at Cordell Volson against the Steelers this week. I thought he had a really good game the first time I watched it. Let's go back and break down the tape. And I watch it a couple hours later. I go, maybe it wasn't that good. And here's the plays why, so, or it'll be the opposite. It'll be, maybe Sam Hubbard really struggled against the Ravens in this game. It felt like he missed a couple tackles. I go throw on the tape and I watch it. And I come away and I go, no, actually, he was really, really good. Here's a few plays why he was better than you thought. So disproving and sometimes proving is part of the game and part of the fun.
So the First Star Media Group YouTube channel, Bengals on the Brain, is going to be a big feature. It's going to be on Tuesdays and Fridays at 8 p.m. That's the schedule right now, correct, Joe?
Yeah, that's right. That'll give us time after the Sunday games to break down the film, digest it a little bit, and get something out for Tuesday. And then whatever scraps remain, or maybe a preview into the next week and next opponent, will be for the Friday show. Some things we can clean up there from the previous week, and then look forward ahead.
What was the trigger? What got you into this in the first place? I mean, you got to be a huge football fan in general, big Bengals fan specifically, like we're talking about. But what triggered you to go to the next level? I mean, you're you are definitely doing something that not very many people do.
It's my generation growing up with the Mel Kipers and the Madden football games, I think made a lot of player evaluation a very a pillar of our football, interest, because the NFL draft, Mel Kiper and the ESPN and everything, making that such a big event, making it look so cool, and knowing what these players can and can't do, what their projection looks like, in fantasy football as well, being able to root for players that maybe aren't on your favorite team, having an interest in what other teams are doing to the guy that you have on your fantasy team. And I always had an interest in the player evaluation and the scouting side of it. And I remember, like I said, 14 years ago, there was a website, Cincy Jungle. It's still around. It's an SB Nation blog. And you could write comments and fan posts on the side. And sometimes they promote them into the front page. And I was writing scouting reports on players coming out of the draft at that time. This is, it's a long time ago. And people liked it. And they said, hey, what do you think about this linebacker then? Or what do you think about this defensive tackle? So I'd go and I'd watch and I'd write it up. And it kind of ballooned from there. I kind of caught fire on Twitter when it was taken off. You remember around the 2009 season when the Bengals were on Hard Knocks, and it was Chad Johnson like, hey, Twitter is cool. And, and everything he did, I wanted to do at the time. So I jumped on there, and Twitter ended up being a really good place to get your ideas out, bounce ideas off of each other, talk to coaches, scouts, players. I mean, it's a great way to connect to people. And sometimes I'm wrong on something, and next thing you know, I have in my DMs, a coach said, hey, actually, it was this guy who missed the blitz pickup. And I'm like, thanks. And then we'll end up having a whole conversation about, how that's supposed to happen. And it's a great way to evolve and keep your game sharp. And so that's what got me into it and kept me into it.
So you've got this 2023 player evaluation booklet. I mean, to me, I've seen it looks like a training camp Bible. I mean, preseason player evaluation preview extraordinaire. Talk about it. What was the brainchild there? I mean, why did you decide to do that, and what can people learn from it? What can people expect to get out of it? Talk about it a little bit, Joe.
Yeah, so player evaluation and scouting is, like I said, one of my pillars in football. And probably about 10 years ago, I started I learned a scouting program. There's reading on them, doing some classes, and you can do like an 8-point grading or a 10-point grading system. So I absorbed this and made it my own. I made it a 10-point grading system. So each position has its own 10 categories, but each category has a subcategory. Like arm strength isn't just how far you can throw the ball, right? It's your velocity. It's the spin on the ball. Can you throw from other platforms? Can you throw off balance? Can you make accurate throws at all levels of the field? There's more that goes into arm strength than just chucking it downfield. And then because I'm Bengals focused, I looked at it like, well, what do the Bengals really like in a defensive end? For a while there, they really loved length. Give them all the 6'6", 6'7" guys. So in the 10-point scale, I said, okay, length and size should be turned up a little bit. Shouldn't be worth the same as a guy maybe as in terms of tackling or in terms of physicality or versatility. They're going to keep the guy at right end. They're not going to move him around. So they don't really care about versatility that much. I'll turn that down. So it was a process of reforming this over a few years that I started about 10 years ago. So I've had grades on these guys for the last 10 years. And it's when I pitched it to First Star, I said, hey, I've got scouting reports and grades on most of these guys. If we could get into a book form, I think it could be something like the drugstore list, if you remember that, or
Sure.
these pre-draft reports that come out. Dane Brugler's The Beast comes out, and it's got all this information, and it's got scouting reports, has strengths and weaknesses of every player, what you can expect, projections for statistics for this year, and I think you can use that for your fantasy if you don't want to end up drafting Chase Brown too high. Maybe, all right, we could bring our expectations back down a little bit, and you can find him as a late round steal. So it'll be all that in there. It's almost 100 pages, and I think it'll be worth your time.
Yeah. It's how long did it take you to put that together, Joe? I mean, do you have any ideas? Like you said, I think I saw it's like 93, 96 pages of unbelievable information, man. It's chock full.
Well, it's hard to keep count. I honestly don't, punch in, punch out and keep a time clock for that stuff. It's watching the games, reviewing the film, writing reports, doing the Bengals on the Brain. You start to have the scouting report of a player you maybe covered 3 or 4 times, in a film piece. Then you match it up with some of the analytics, the data, maybe match it up with what PFF says, or talk to other people that maybe you're like, hey, what do you think of this guy? Do you think, he could take this step into this role if Akeem Davis-Gaither had to step into the starting role at linebacker? What do you think he would do? What do you think his strengths and weaknesses would do? So I bounce that ideas off of what I think, what I've seen, and then, talk to other people and try and get an idea for what he kind of can do. So I would say a lot of hours to answer your question, Dave.
I bet. Well, you mentioned you're in Buffalo, but you're going to be coming to Cincinnati for training camp. You're coming, what is it, August 6th to August 10th, spending some time at training camp. What's the objective there?
Get a look at the team, right? See what they're doing, see what they're working on. Maybe new roles. Is Travion Williams the third down back? How is he looking pass protection? Aforementioned Chase Brown, can he take that role? What are they doing differently this year in order to combat what I think defenses are going to use against the Bengals? I think what the Ravens did in the wild card game is going to be what teams are going to try and mimic. And how do you combat that? Are we going to see more play action, more RPOs? Are we going to see the Bengals try to create more vertical outside shots the way they did in 2021? And that was really taken away from them last year. So there's a lot to look at. I love training camp. I love preseason. I think evaluating not just the top 55 guys, but the other 30 is a worthwhile experience.
I agree with you. I mean, the thing I like about training camp from, even OTAs and mini camp stuff, people like, that's so boring. The formation of the football team is very interesting, man. And it's different, every year. Sometimes there's a big transformation. Sometimes there's minor tweaks here and there. I mean, from a roster standpoint, from a 53-man, potential 53-man standpoint, the Bengals are going to be in pretty good shape in terms of the rest of the NFL. Do you think they're top 5 team in terms of personnel, top to bottom in the 53-man roster, Joe, or is that aggressive?
No, I think you're right. I think the only other time this roster's been this strong was entering the 2015 year, where I thought they had a top 3 roster that year. And obviously Andy Dalton gets hurt. They didn't get to really explore how far that team would have went. I think this team is right with them. I do think they've got some depth issues probably at tight end. They've got inexperience at backup running back. One of those guys are going to have to step up and play some serious minutes, stepping in Samaje Perine's role. But overall, I think they're extremely deep at corner. I think they're extremely deep at defensive end now. I think their young safeties are going to be great. I know it's going to be a transition. I know it's going to take some time. Anytime you lose 2 really good players in Bell and Bates, you're going to have in Lou Anarumo's scheme a step back for at least some time. So that's another thing in camp. How quickly can we see that? What's that rotation look like? How quickly can they get back to disguising everything and communicating and holding on to their coverages as long as possible before switching it up? Those safeties got some big shoes to fill, but I'm excited about it. And I think they're deep again, and maybe as strong as they've been since that 2015 team on the offensive line, which may be the key to the entire thing.
Couldn't agree with you more, Joe. Appreciate you spending time with us, and real excited about you joining First Star Media Group. That's going to be awesome, man. Look forward to working with you, Joe. Appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks for having me on, Dave.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.